Welcome to the Derby Difference, the official podcast of Derby Academy in Hingham, Massachusetts, where we celebrate the people, the stories, and the spirit that make our pre-K through grade 8 community so special. I'm your host, Jeff Natali, and for our first episode, we're starting at the top. Literally, I'm joined by our head of school, Dr. Colleen Ramsden, to talk about Derby's mission, what sets us apart, and the exciting direction we're heading as a school community. Let's dive in. All right, Colleen, welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you. So for my first question, I kind of want to start right at the beginning of your Derby journey. So why did you become the head of school at Derby? What was it about Derby that excited you? And why are you here?
Great question. I remember so clearly 5 years ago when I had the opportunity to interview for the head of school position at Derby. And I remember walking on this campus and feeling at home right away. That was what it was, that feeling of community, connections. Everybody was joyful and happy to be here. And what really drove me to Derby was the mission and the motto of improving both mind and heart. I believe as an educator, that is our job, not just to focus on academics. Of course, that's important, but also to develop good people. And that's what we do here at Derby.
Amazing. So when you think about your own school experience, so you as a child, what stands out to you? Were there teachers or was there a particular school? Like what drove you into education?
Well, I'll tell you, unfortunately, it was because I didn't have a great school experience that I became an educator. I really struggled in school. I was one of those quiet, shy kids who never made any trouble, but I was always under the radar and nobody seemed to notice me or help me to shine. And so I became an educator because I really want to make a difference for all children. I believe that's our job, is to see and value every single child.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I started here with my daughter a few years back, that was one of the things that I noticed about her academic experience right away. So we came from a public school, big public school in California, 28 kids in the class, and she didn't like going to school. Every day was pulling teeth to getting her to go to school. And I just remember after the first week at Derby, it was her pulling me to school. And that's such an amazing feeling as a parent, and I'm sure as a student, right? Thinking back and like loving school. So that's great. So let's talk a little bit about the mission, because you had mentioned it, improve both mind and heart. Talk to me a little bit about the Derby difference. What is the Derby difference in your opinion?
In my opinion, the Derby difference is the connections and the relationships between students and teachers. That is at the heart of everything we do. And that's why our school theme this year is connections, because we believe once children feel known and cared for by their teachers, they can succeed. The research is clear that relationships between teachers and students is key to their success. And that's what we do really well here.
So describe that in action. What does that look like to you?
What does it look like to me? You're walking to the lunchroom and kids run to their kindergarten teacher, even though they're in fourth grade now, to say hello. That is the relationships. Or you're at a sporting event and you see groups of teachers there cheering on kids that they taught years ago, but they're there because they care about the children as people and want them to succeed.
And you know what? It's kind of reciprocal too, because last year during the faculty, staff versus eighth graders soccer game, I looked up in the crowd at a certain point in time, and I think there are more kids cheering for the faculty and staff than for the eighth graders. And that was an amazing feeling. Absolutely. So you can tell that the kids feel the love and feel the support. And then, when it's their turn to support us, they were right there cheering for us, which was great. Talk to me a little bit about the pre-K through 8. Derby wasn't always a pre-K through 8. We did go through 9th grade for a while, but talk to me specifically about the pre-K through 8 experience. Why does that benefit our students? And why is Derby intentionally a pre-K through 8 program?
This is what I believe is the heart of Derby, and that everybody should have that opportunity to experience. A pre-K through 8 is where kids get to be kids for longer. When you are in a school that has a high school, you are looking as sixth, seventh, eighth graders to those high school kids and wanting to emulate them. Here, our sixth, seventh, eighth graders get to be the leaders. They get to be the big kids at school. They're not stuck in the middle here, which happens in other schools. I believe in the pre-K through 8 because we keep kids younger longer. When you see eighth graders going down the slide and playing on the swings and connecting with each other without cell phones, that's what we do really well here.
Amazing. Awesome. So you talked a little bit about authentic leadership. And last year we went through the whole exercise of the portrait of a graduate. And Derby talks about those sort of characteristics, right? It's the empathetic upstander, the authentic leader, creative innovator, resilient problem solvers, and confident critical thinkers. What do those qualities mean to you? Maybe you don't have to pick apart like each one of them, but what does the portrait of a graduate mean to you? Why was it important for you as the head of school to kind of drive that initiative forward? And tell me a little bit about what you thought about the results.
Yeah, the whole process was excellent. I have to thank you, Jeff, because you really spearheaded it for us. So thank you. It was so exciting to watch so many different groups of people be involved in helping us land on those 5 qualities. We had our parents involved. We had our students involved. We had our alumni involved. It was such an inclusive process to get to where we got to. And that was really exciting. For me, it's things that we always did at Derby, but now we're very intentional about using that language. For pre-K and K students to know what it means to be an empathetic upstander and be able to use that language, or how important it is to be a problem solver, a critical thinker. Those are things we want our kids from a young age to understand, that that's the skills and competencies they need to be successful, not only in school, but in life.
Wonderful. Tell me about a recent moment or story that makes you especially proud to be a part of the Derby community. So we kind of just named off a lot of those, like, core characteristics that our Derby students embody, and our teachers do too, right? So tell me about a story that makes you especially proud of the community.
So I remember getting a picture from a parent, and she said, we have this awesome PALS program here, where our kids buddy up, kindergarten with 7th grade and things like that. And she sent me a picture. They were at Barnes and Nobles, and it was a 5th grader and a 1st grader that they met there, and they were sitting reading books together at Barnes and Nobles because they built a connection here at Derby. And that little 1st grader, of course, was looking up to that 5th grader saying, you are the best thing ever. And for them to make a situation where they could meet and read books together, I just thought that's what Derby does. And that's why we're here.
The PALS program is one of my favorite things that we do here. It's always like an exciting time of the year at the beginning of the year where kids are wondering who their teacher is going to be, who are the students, other students in the same classroom. And I found my daughter asking, I wonder who my pal is going to be this year, because it's such an important connection. It's such a fun connection. And, I have a younger daughter now coming here, Shay, and Kendall is wondering for Shay, who's going to be the 8th grader? Dad, do you get to pick the 8th grader? I'm like, I don't have anything to do with it. We'll just see what ends up happening. But it's such an amazing program.
It sure is.
So that's kind of PALS is sort of a unique to Derby sort of thing. What other things in the Derby community are unique to Derby that maybe you haven't seen at other schools or that wasn't at your last school, Ravenscroft?
I would say how we manage our lunch time. For me, as a student, I can remember walking around like, where am I going to sit? Is somebody going to let me sit at the table with them? But for us, that is never an issue because we place the students in groups with a teacher at the table to help facilitate a conversation. Our lunchroom experience is a joy, not a stress for children, which it can be if they don't have a good buddy to sit with, especially if they're new to the school. Here, they're sitting with kids from different age groups and they're interacting. They get to really know kids from other grade levels and become friends with them because it's just the norm here.
Yeah, I love the lunchtime setup. You have every teacher's got their own personality. Like I love sitting at my table and sometimes I overhear, Dave Kleberg asking, would you rather, battle 100 elephant-sized mice or mice-sized elephants and just coming up with all these crazy questions for the kids to think about and wrestle with during lunch. Everybody's got their own personality and I love that about the Derby experience. And the tables rotate so you get a different set of kids every few weeks and you really get to know, for me, the sixth graders, the seventh graders, and then obviously the eighth graders, which for me is really important. So how do families, faculty, and students partner together to create the Derby experience? What is sort of the through line between families, faculty, and students that you can see?
Yeah, I mean, partnership between school and home is key to the success of the students. And I think we do that really well here. I think our parents trust our teachers to know what's best for their kids. They know they care about them and want them to succeed. And once parents believe that, they can really trust that we've got their children and we've got them in our hands and we're going to make sure that they have the best year possible. To me, that relationship between families and trusting the school is the key. When parents have concerns, they go to the teachers. They ask them questions. When teachers have concerns about a child, they call the family and say, hey, your child was a little off today. Anything you want me to know? That connection and ability to communicate on a regular basis is key to the success for everybody.
So key. And sort of two stories from that. My first parent meeting with Kendall's teacher, in kindergarten, it was with Miss Smith. I just remember her. It was within the first couple months of school, knowing Kendall so well. After a year where we had a teacher that barely knew her name because she was like you, right? Shy, quiet, kind of sat in the back of the classroom, 28 kids. She's never going to be the one that raises her hand. She's also never going to be the one that gets in trouble. For Kate Smith to know my child so well after just a couple months, I was blown away. And so that kind of like catapulted me into the Derby experience where the teachers knew my child so well. That was amazing. And then the other thing I see in my role as a secondary school counselor is the teacher recommendations that the teachers write for our students. They're so detailed, so they know the students both from an academic perspective, but also a personal perspective. And for me as the secondary school counselors, I know that these schools are going to know our kids so well when they get there. It's a really special thing. So it's not only just for Derby, it's for the high schools that get our Derby students after Derby's over. It's just it's a really cool thing that our teachers do. So I want to talk a little bit about looking ahead. So what excites you most about Derby's future? What are you looking forward to? Are there any new initiatives or potentially a strategic plan on the horizon? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yes, we're really excited to launch our next strategic plan, which will take us through 2030. For the next 5 years, we are focusing on the student experience, faculty excellence. That's key, always number one priority. We're focusing on telling the Derby story, and this is one example of how you came up with this idea to do the podcast and are running with it so that we're telling the Derby story and getting the word out there of all the amazing things we do. That's number two, telling the Derby story. And then the financial health of the school, that's something we always have to think about. And my favorite is about campus renewal. We're really thinking about how can we take our campus, what's happening inside is so great. How can we make sure our grounds and our buildings match what we're doing? And so over the next 5 years, I'm really excited about the transformations that are going to happen both inside and outside the classrooms.
Very nice. Okay, so this kind of leads into maybe one of my last questions, but then we'll have some fun at the end. What is your favorite spot on campus? Where is the spot where if you're going to think or you want to take a walk, where's your favorite spot?
My favorite spot is watching a baseball game from the beautiful chairs we have overlooking Broad Cove. That is my absolute favorite spot. My daughter was here visiting this summer and the sun was about to set. I said, come on, we're going down. We're going to sit in those beautiful chairs and look at the sunset over Broad Cove. And it's just such a peaceful, beautiful place. And sometimes you miss it. You don't know it's here on campus. So that's my very favorite spot to sit, think, and to watch games.
Yeah, absolutely. A free pitch for the baseball team, too.
That's right.
If you want to come out and watch the baseball team, that's the spot you do it. So we'll do a little rapid fire. So favorite school lunch?
Breakfast for lunch.
Best school assembly that you've been a part of?
I loved the one where teachers had to play instruments they didn't know how to play, and the kids had to guess what the song was. They were, you couldn't even tell. I was playing this instrument. I was like, do, 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 do.
Did the kids guess it?
No,
not even close.
Not even close.
Book you think every middle school student should read?
I believe every student should read The Giving Tree by Chell Silverstein. I brought it with me. That is a book. I know you think, well, middle school, this is a picture book. The message in this book is so powerful about how we all need to give back to the environment, to our world, to make it a better place. And everybody should read that and reread it every year.
Love it. One word that best describes Derby. You only get one. It's tough.
Community.
Love it.
Yeah,
Perfect.
that's who we are. That's what makes it such a special place.
That's a wrap on our very first episode of The Derby Difference. A huge thank you to our head of school, Dr. Colleen Ramsden, for joining us and setting the stage for what's ahead, not just on this podcast, but for Derby as a whole. If you like this conversation, be sure to subscribe and stay tuned. We'll be talking to 8th grade students, teachers, alumni, and more to keep exploring what makes Derby such a special place to learn and grow. Until next time, thanks for listening and keep living the Derby difference.
Thanks, Joe. Bye, everyone.